Kia is normally a brand you associate with value rather than market-leading technology, but that looks set to change. This car, the EV6, is no trend follower. It's the first version in Kia's new all-electric range, and it's absolutely brilliant. Before we go into the details though, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You probably know that the EV6 shares a platform with the Hyundai Ioniq 5. It's called EGMP. Kia has taken quite a different approach with the EV6. Where the Ioniq 5 is modern retro, the EV6 is much more purely futuristic on the outside. We think it looks quite a bit like Jaguar's I-Pace, and we're not alone in that sentiment. But we also think the EV6 looks even better than the Jag, with the fierce front and sporty sloping back. That sloping rear does have some drawbacks, but we'll get to that a bit later. First, let's talk about the different versions of the EV6. Unlike the Ioniq 5, the Kia EV6 only comes with one battery size, 77.4 kilowatt hours. But there are three motor choices. The rear-wheel drive version has 226 bhp, and the regular all-wheel drive option increases the power to 321 bhp. Then there's a GT version with a gobsmacking 577 bhp, but that hasn't arrived in the UK yet. There are Air, GT Line and GT Line S trim options. The Air can only be purchased with the RWD motor. You can also add a heat pump to all but the Air trim for £900. The GT has this as standard and is a premium trim on its own. This red paint is actually the standard colour on all but the GT car. Premium paint options include white, black, blue and grey, including a matte grey option. These cost £675, but you get a premium paint choice as standard with the GT car. Not all colours are available with every trim though. The Air comes with grey 19-inch wheels. The GT line has black 19-inch wheels with the same design. And this GT Line S has black 20-inch wheels with a slightly different appearance. The GT gets 21-inch rims, although the design is still very similar to other trims. Buying a Kia is slightly less confusing than some German brands because pretty much everything is included in the trim level that you choose. The headlights are LED on all cars, but from GT line upwards, you get dual LEDs with adaptive beams. You get electric seats for the GT line upwards too, including a memory function for the driver. The GT line also gets front parking sensors. The GT Line S and GT have heated rear seats, ventilated front seats and a powered tailgate. The GT Line S and GT cars have these door handles that present themselves as you come closer. Let's take a look inside. There are three interior options for the EV6, none of which contain real leather. Vegan leather is the upholstery for the Air trim, but this car has the black suede and white vegan leather of the two GT line trims. You get black suede with neon green stitching on the GT car. Its seats are buckets too. As we already said, the electric adjustments are included from the GT line upwards with memory function for the driver. But you need the GT Line S for ventilated seats. These seats are pretty comfortable and you get a decent amount of headroom in the front. This sunroof is only included from GT Line S and above. It opens completely at the touch of a button. Unlike the Ioniq 5, this central console doesn't move. You can't move it backwards and forwards. You get a couple of cup holders. This is a Qi charger, which, as you can see, it kind of sits underneath the armrest. And on the armrest here, you have quite a sizable cubby. That wireless phone charger is available on all cars except the entry-level Air trim. There's also this extra space down here. You can put a few things in this space. You've got a 12-volt car power adapter. This also has another USB-C port, but you get a USB Type A and a USB Type C down here as well. So plenty of opportunity to plug things in. This glove compartment is quite nicely designed. You've got a document area here and it goes back quite far. But even though it does go far back, it's nowhere near as large as the full-size drawer you get with the Ioniq 5. So now we get to one of the drawbacks of that sloping rear roof. There is plenty of knee room for rear passengers. However, headroom is decent enough if you're 5'10" like me, but if you're 6 foot and over, you're probably going to start to feel it on your hair. You get heated rear seats with the GT Line S and GT cars. So this middle seat is fairly narrow. It's probably okay for an adult for a short journey and a kid for a longer one. If you don't have a middle seat passenger, you can pull this down and you get a armrest with a couple of cup holders. And this is quite a nice feature. You can pull this back and there's a cubby inside instead if you want to use it for that. And obviously it's not covered because there are these holes for drinks on top. You get ISOFIX points here to the 2 rear outer seats, but there aren't any in the front, so if you want to keep a third child safe, you'll need another car. You might be wondering why there's no air vents or USB ports here in the central console. That's because the air vents are actually in the B pillar, which is a more sensible place to put them in some ways because it's higher up and you'll be able to point it at your face more easily. And the USB-C ports can be found on the sides of the seats, which again is quite sensible because you can put the device that's attached to them in the seat back pocket. And assuming your child hasn't filled these pockets with multiple iPads and devices, these sturdy pockets are available for them to keep their copies of Stainless Steel Rat, or whatever it is kids read these days. The other drawback of that sloping rear roof line is in diminished boot space. You don't get a kick release either with these boots, but you do get an electric tailgate with the GT Line S and GT trim levels. So if I just press this button, it will open. So this blind is quite easy to pull back. Now let's move these cables out the way. This space like this is 490 litres, and if you remove this entirely, it will increase it to 520 litres. This is quite a nice design feature. You move this plastic bit here, and then if you take the parcel shelf off this way, this bit is not so easy to do, but it is quite nice once you've done it, because basically you can slot your parcel shelf in here, maybe put that back over the top like that, and you don't have to worry about where you put your parcel shelf. So these levers on the side that you pop the seats forward, and there's one on the other side here that pops this one. Now this looks like a decent size, but it's actually only 1,300 litres, which is maybe kind of competitive with a medium-sized estate car, but it's quite a lot less than a lot of electric SUVs like the VW Group ones. This boot capacity is decent without the seats down compared to, say, for example, Volkswagen Group SUVs, but the Tesla Model Y will beat it here, and it will beat it a lot when you've got the boot open. There's also a 12-volt supply here for anything powered you need to have in the back of the car. So if you put the seat back up again, and you'll notice that there's no cool way of keeping the seatbelt in place, but it does have this rather cute little compartment. So this is probably only good enough for skis. You're not going to be able to put anything else that's too fat, but it will allow you to have a longer item in the back and 2 rear seat passengers. So that limited boot space is one of the drawbacks of this car. However, on the plus side, it can tow up to 1,600 kilograms braked, which is enough for a small caravan. Neither the tow bar nor caravan are supplied. So these seats also have 2 positions. You'll see that you can have them in this position as well, which is probably not that comfortable for passengers, but you can move the parcel shelf back then and have a little bit more space in the back. Now this car also has a frunk underneath this cover. You can see this one is not very big. This is just 20 litres. However, if you get one of the single motor cars with just a rear motor, this is quite a bit bigger. It's 52 litres then. Kia obviously thinks that cars like the EV6 can't be sold with a mediocre range, so that's why all of its versions of the EV6 have that 77.4 kilowatt hour battery. This provides up to 328 miles of range with the rear-wheel drive car, 314 miles of range with this dual motor car, and the GT car only has 252 miles of range. Adding that optional extra heat pump will make the best use of this range in cold weather, although as we pointed out before, the GT car has that heat pump as standard. Slightly annoying, this charge port doesn't open from the outside. You have to press this button instead on the driver's side controls. Otherwise, charging capabilities are brilliant. Like the Ioniq 5, the 800 volt subsystem means that you can charge this car really fast with a 350 kilowatt charger. This can take the car from 10 to 80% in just 18 minutes. On a 7 kilowatt home AC wall box, it will take over 12 hours to hit 100%. On GT line and above, you also get vehicle to load capability, which means you have this adapter. Now, you might remember this from the Ioniq 5, it's exactly the same thing. You've got a 13 amp plug, and you just basically plug it straight into here, into the AC side of the CCS port, and then you will get power output. Press the button and it will output power to an attached device. So you could, for example, charge a fridge while you're out on camping. You could inflate a boat with a 13 amp inflator. Loads of possibilities. So power consumption ranges from 4.2 miles per kilowatt hour to just 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour for the GT car. So this isn't the most economical car to drive. The EV6's interior is maybe not quite as radical as the Ioniq 5's. Steering wheel is fairly conventional with stalks for lights and windscreen wipers. You've got on the left here, these are all the controls for the adaptive cruise control, which we'll talk about in a bit. This button here changes the drive motor power between normal, eco and sport. If you hold this button down for a longer period, it switches to a fourth power mode, which is snow mode, but it's not very snowy today, so we're not going to be able to test that. And on the right here, you've got buttons for voice control and changing the stereo volume and answering a phone call if you've got hands-free sorted out on your phone. You can see just peeking out from the side of the steering wheel is a paddle for increasing the regenerative braking, and there's one on the other side for reducing it. So starting the car, press of this button here, and then you have this control knob is fairly familiar to Kia EV owners. You can go from drive mode, neutral, reverse, and then on the top is park. There's a separate button for turning on auto hold, and then you've got some buttons here for switching on or off the parking camera and front parking sensors. We like the fact you get these separate buttons. For these ones are for ventilation, which as we said is only available on the GT Line S and above, and you also get heated seats, which is on most cars, and heated steering wheel as well. We really like the way this control panel has been designed. Now at the moment you can see it's just got buttons for changing the functions of the infotainment screen, which we'll talk about in a second, but actually if you press this, it gives you all of the air conditioning controls, a complete set, which are pretty easy to operate without actually looking down. So really great function. You can sync, you've got dual zone air conditioning here as well, and then the temperatures. And if you go back to this mode, you'll see that the buttons have changed to changing volume and things like media controls as well. Really nice piece of design this. The dashboard is a purely digital 12.3 inch panel. You see it's got this speed on the left, you've got the remaining range on the right, and the central bit will vary between various different trip functions, or you could have a small bit of sat nav. You'll see there are some icons along the bottom for telling you various statuses, and also along the top as well. However, this car has a head-up display, which unlike other head-up displays on Kia cars is projected straight onto the windscreen. You can see that it's got the speed limit and current speed. It will also show some things like lane departure warnings on there, and there will be sat-nav information there as well when you're actually driving. So as we stated, there are some other buttons for this, but when you go to the home screen, you can operate any of the different functions. You'll see that there's a full sat-nav, there's a connected sat-nav. You can search entirely by keyword here, which is kind of handy. Then you've got, if you go back to this screen here, you can see functions about how the EV's got for range, and kind of where you need to turn off your air conditioning, which is quite useful. If we go into phone projection, please connect a phone that supports Android Auto. So that actually allows you to use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, but as you can see, USB cable only. You'll notice that this car has a valet mode, which is useful if you're leaving the car at maybe an airport car park. If we go into, there's obviously a DAB radio that'll probably come on when I press this button and be really annoying. There we go. Let's turn that off again. Shut off radio 2. I'm very middle class. And you can add a media device. You see again Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and you've got various USB devices or Bluetooth attachment to a phone you could use. Again, you can get through to climate control here as well, which is useful, although obviously you can operate that directly with the control panel below. If we go into the settings, you will see that there's various vehicle settings, driver assistance modes, all different drivers. We'll talk about those. You can customize your drive modes if you need to actually keep the vehicle as economical as possible. This is rather cute. You can actually change the way the different sounds occur to pretend you've got a more noisy motor than you actually have. There are separate profiles that you can use to change the settings en masse for different drivers. So this is a connected sat-nav, and it uses the Kia Connect UVO system, and this just gives you ways to activate that service. You can see it's got quite a lot of years actually have been included. I think these are probably about 7 years of version of so probably the warranty of the vehicle, which we'll talk about shortly. One final thing is this home screen actually has 3 screens. This is kind of one was kind of like a home screen with just various information. When you're not really driving, those are the icons we talked about. You get a few extra icons here, the live services here, traffic, live charging stations and live parking. Live charging stations could be pretty useful. Traffic is obviously very useful if you happen to commute a lot during rush hour. Aside from the looks, the other way where the EV6 differs from the Ioniq 5 is the way it drives. The Ioniq 5 is great for its size, but the EV6 is even better. Headline performance figures aren't different though. The rear-wheel drive cars take 7.3 seconds to hit 62 miles per hour, but this drops to a sprightly 5.2 seconds with the all-wheel drive cars. The GT model will give Tesla a run for its money, hitting 62 in just 3.5 seconds. Although this dual-motor car weighs nearly 2.1 tons, it handles incredibly well, as you'd hope for the sporty looks. This is definitely a vehicle that encourages vigorous driving. It is quite big though, which you have to be wary of when you're city driving. The suspension is also quite firm, which is great when you're cornering, but doesn't iron out bumps quite as much as some other EVs. At motorway speeds though, the EV6 reigns supreme, so you can make good use of its excellent range. Overall, the EV6 provides a competitive driving experience to the Jaguar I-Pace, which is commendable. We also prefer it to the Tesla Model Y in this respect, but not the Tesla Model 3. As you'd expect from Kia, you get a lot of safety tech as standard, and even more with the higher trim levels. Forward collision assist, lane follow assist and lane keep assist are all standard features. With the GT line above, you get blind spot detection and rear cross traffic assistance. These video views that pop up when you indicate are included with the GT line and GT line S and above. They're great for keeping an eye on your blind spots and to help you miss pedestrians and cyclists. So you can see you get a very nice clear view of what's happening on the inside. So if somebody's coming up on your inside, you should be able to see them. The GT Line S and GT also include forward collision warnings for junctions. There's parking collision assistance and highway driving assistance too. That's version 2, not as well. This is a level 2 autonomous system like Tesla Autopilot, so it includes features like the ability to have adaptive cruise control and also keep you in your lane on highways, and apparently it can also do things like change lanes for you when you indicate. Note that the GT exclusively also includes electronically controlled suspension and an electronic limited slip differential. That helps when you're pulling away fast and you want to keep traction on all the wheels. Like Hyundai with the Ioniq 5, Kia knows that the EV6 is not a car aimed at pure value. It's a quality premium car and the price reflects that. Even the basic Air rear-wheel drive trim costs nearly £41,000. That's just £2,000 less than the basic Tesla Model 3, which has a bit more performance but a bit less range. All-wheel drive cars start at £47,000 and the GT is over £58,000. However, compared to Tesla cars, the format sits somewhere between the Model 3 and Model Y. It has more space than the former, but quite a lot less than the latter. It's also priced cheaper than both and also quite competitively against the VW brand cars apart from the Skoda Enyaq iV. It's also priced quite favourably against the Ford Mustang Mach-E. Insurance groups range from 33 for the Air to 45 for the GT. That's quite high but still lower than a Tesla. As you'd expect from a Kia, the warranty is really excellent. It's 7 years for the whole car. That consists of the first 3 years are for unlimited miles and then the remaining 4 years are for up to 100,000 miles. The battery also has a 7-year warranty for 100,000 miles for 70% capacity. Overall, the EV6 doesn't offer the supreme value of the e-Niro or Soul EV, but it's a premium vehicle, so it competes with the VW group cars and even Tesla. Compared to those, it doesn't look expensive, although it is still far from cheap. So all cars have some form of rear parking camera. This one, however, has a full panoramic view. You can see here, you can see both a really nice view of the rear plus a top-down view, which is particularly handy if you're trying to line up with a space. The EV6 isn't perfect. The rear passenger and cargo space is behind some electric SUVs in this class. Tesla also reigns supreme for performance and range, but this is still an absolutely brilliant car. Performance is good, The range is excellent and it's packed with superb design features and tech. The EV6 really puts Kia on the map as one of the leading electric vehicle makers. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel.